Dong, dong. Dong, dong. It ain't been 24 hours. But last night, it was both. Because I have an air fryer and a microwave combined into one. So I decided to come back to part 2 of the pappasada. Last night I ate one of these, and I don't remember what else happened the rest of the night. I ended up nodding out or something. Somebody cussed me out. Oh my God, look at that. How you doing? Push that like button. Miss D-Lo, what's up? What's up? Okay. Trump's tragic statement. Listen, Trump did something so different today. And I don't know if it's just me, but Trump has learned how to read from the teleprompter a lot better. He learned how to slow down his speech, get his message out good. Trump is on fire right now. Today, Trump came out and did a press briefing. Man, Trump is more cooler than Obama was. Do y'all see how he came out? He came out pimping. Pimping. How you doing, Josh? This is delicious. This is a pappasada. The first words that Trump said, and this is why you can't help but to have respect for him. He said, man, we need a small moment of silence for all the victims who lost their lives in this plane crash. Them was the saddest, tragic words I ever, and the way he delivered it, they touched my heart. They really touched my heart. How you doing? Push that like button. Joshua, do you see how great America is becoming already? Man, this is a history unfolding right between your eyes, bro. You better write down every moment, document it. You're gonna have a lot to tell your grandkids when they get older. When you get older. Oh, this is delicious. This is delicious. Look at that corn, that steak. Okay, there's a lot of things going on in the world right now.
Ce continent qui a tant souffert et qui continue.
This continent has suffered so much and continues to suffer because of imperialists.
Ces impérialistes n'ont qu'un seul cliché.
These imperialists have only one cliché in mind. Africa is the empire of slaves.
Comme ça qu'ils voient l'Afrique. Pour eux,
this is how they see Africa. For them, Africans belong to them. Our lands belong to them. Our subsoil belongs to them. They have never been able to change the logic until today. This is deplorable. But how do they proceed? Unfortunately.
Okay. Everybody, push that like button. Dang, where everybody go to?
When the temperature drops, you've got two choices. Close your eyes and think warm thoughts, or open your eyes and get out here. There's only one vehicle lineup that embraces everything the cold has to offer. The official vehicles of winter. Jeep, there's only one.
Right now, during the Jeep Start Something New sales event, get 20% below MSRP for an average of $13,000 under MSRP on 2024 Jeep Gladiator Rubicon and Mojave models.
Today, I'll show you how I saved thousands of dollars using cardboard for the ultimate landscaping hack. And then I'll show you how I built the world's first. So, you don't want to miss that. Welcome to Hacksman, y'all. We're in the middle of a major backyard transformation, and I want some really big boulders to go along the perimeter of these bushes. And
Oh, he made his own boulders. We cannot fix one. George Frank.
How could an America who could morally, spiritually, and biblically justify the kidnapping, raping, and pillaging of another two people, natives already in America and Africans brought to America, and perhaps had God not sent us to America, America might have self-destructed by now. That's how insane the social construct of racism is, and white superiority. That's how insane. This is an insane. Do you understand that this is an insane concept? The most egregious concept of slavery, because Africans were familiar with slavery, but you were indentured, you were enslaved to work on a pyramid, but then you went home. No. They took it to a whole new level. No, not only are you enslaved, but when you have children, they will be enslaved. And when they have children, they will be enslaved. And you will be enslaved, your whole family, for, about 250 years until it's illegal. That had never been created before. So the concept of racism and the most egregious form of slavery is simple insanity. How another human being can come up with something like that and sustain it for centuries is a clear sign of insanity. I want you to write this down. I want you to go on YouTube today or tomorrow, and I want you to search Toni Morrison and Charlie Rose. How many of you know who Charlie Rose is? One of the best interviewers on PBS. Toni Morrison and Charlie Rose interview.
People say Americans are so obsessed with race. People say Americans can't do anything without something racial. Like, it is part and parcel of people's life. And it is true. Why? Because the United States was formed on the basis of race. And now when you ask a question, nothing can ever go on without bringing up the question of racism in America. In short, another definition of America is country with race of races. And this means that people have their own expectation of societal things, historical things, cultural things, and things that has ever happened. Amongst the marginalized group that I'm here to talk about today, most definitely, black people being played as the subject and white people as their counterparts. Somebody would like to ask this question: what is it really great in racism? What is it really great to feel like you're greater than other person? What is it really great to make a feeling a person works for you for 500,000 years without even you paying them? This video is going to be featuring two black American professors. One is Dr. Fraser. Two is Toni Morrison. They are going to give a speech that will make you understand, that will explain why it is so hard for white people to do without being racist, right? And they are trying to make it understand, and they don't want you to talk about this because it's important. And when you talk about the United States, you're talking about race and racism, those two things. Now, the first video is about Dr. Fraser. Dr. Fraser is going to refer to Toni Morrison, a speech in an interview of Charlie Rose that happened some moments ago. I don't know if Toni Morrison, she's still alive until today, and if she's not, may her soul rest in peace, and if she's still alive, I hope that she's great wherever she is. Now, I want us to dive right into this video. This video is so really revealing. It's so important, and I want us to learn from the video. Until then, I'll be back. Let's watch the video and have a proper discussion in regards to this. I'll be back. If you're watching this video for the first time, I'll most definitely ask you to subscribe to the channel, join our membership, and really get to see what we can offer you. But until then, let's dive right into the video. I'll be back.
How could an America who could morally, spiritually, and biblically justify the kidnapping, raping, and pillaging of another two people, natives already in America and Africans brought to America, and perhaps had God not sent us to America, America might have self-destructed by now. That's how insane the social construct of racism is, and white superiority. That's how insane. This is an insane. Do you understand that this is an insane concept? The most egregious concept of slavery, because Africans were familiar with slavery, but you were indentured, you were enslaved to work on a pyramid, but then you went home. No. They took it to a whole new level. No, not only are you enslaved, but when you have children, they will be enslaved. And when they have children, they will be enslaved. And you will be enslaved, your whole family, for about 250 years until it's illegal. That had never been created before. So the concept of racism and the most egregious form of slavery is simple insanity. How another human being can come up with something like that and sustain it for centuries is a clear sign of insanity. I want you to write this down. I want you to go on YouTube today or tomorrow, and I want you to search Toni Morrison and Charlie Rose. How many of you know who Charlie Rose is? One of the best interviewers on PBS. Toni Morrison and Charlie Rose interview. Charlie Rose asked Toni Morrison, what does she think about racism? Toni Morrison, one of the most brilliant minds on the planet, not just black, Nobel laureate, Pulitzer Prize winning Toni Morrison, looked at Charlie with the seriousness of a heart attack and said, that is the wrong question, Charlie. The question is, what do you think about racism? Charlie Rose is white. She said, because racism feels insane to me. And it is insane. So my advice to you, Charlie, is that white people get therapy. That's what she told Charlie Rose on public television. Y'all need to get therapy. I don't know why more of America isn't talking about this. And leave black people alone and not let your insanity drive us insane. Because that's what you're trying to do. And they have done a very good job. So, I have come to the conclusion as a 70-year-old black man living in America, we cannot fix white people. We haven't been able to fix them in 4.
Carl never really thought much of his credit scores until he got Credit Karma and used his scores to score more. like this less humble abode. That's what I'm talking about, Carl. Intuit Credit Karma. Download the Money app where your hard work pays off.
Welcome to Reinvented with Accenture.
Amanda Riley was a mother, wife.
Everybody loved her. I heard the words, "You have stage 3 blood cancer."
We gave our hearts, our prayers.
We thought she was God's gift, but she was a liar.
Why would somebody fake cancer?
There's all these pictures of her in the hospital with IVs, tubing. It was only a matter of time until Amanda's whole world came tumbling down.
Oh my God!
Scamanda premieres tonight on ABC and stream on Hulu.
Years. We cannot fix them. White people must fix white people. This is what Toni Morrison said. Y'all got to fix yourself. We cannot fix white people. We haven't been able to fix them in 400 years. We cannot fix them. White people must fix white people. This is what Toni Morrison said. Y'all got to fix yourself. We can't fix you. We got to fix you. But we can fix ourselves. That's the most important thing. We can undo over time some of the damage done to us by their insanity. And we are damaged goods. I don't have to explain that to you, right? Just look at our damaged goods on us. We can fix us. In fact, white folks are not going to fix us. Do you understand that? They haven't in 400 years. Who are white folks going to fix? White folks. Asians are going to fix Asians. East Indians are working on East Indians. They ain't working on you. Right? Arabs are working on Arabs. Our Jewish brothers and sisters are working on their issues and their people. That's who they should be working on. So they're not going to fix us. I have a good white friend who said to me, George, I know what black people's problem is. I said, oh, really, Bob? What is black people's problem? He said, you spend all of your time thinking about us, and we don't spend any of our time thinking about you. So, George, if you're not thinking about you, and we damn sure ain't thinking about you, who's thinking about you? I had to do the Holy Ghost dance. I had no comeback. I had no comeback. So that's right. So we have to spend our time working on us. And there is much work to do, right? So we'll put a pin in that thought. Look at a very, very short video that speaks powerfully to one of the reasons you must be at the Power Networking Conference in your own backyard. It is a concept that I've been working on for 30 years. And now I don't know if you know, but I'm the brother that came up with the term connect the dots. Right? I've been saying that for almost 30 years. It's now a very, very popular phrase, but if you read any of my books, the first one to say that, the first one to put that together. So I think Cassandra is going to start this piece, and let me frame it up for you. Just hold on one second, Cassandra. This was a piece I did 8 years ago at Eddie Long's church in Atlanta during the State of Black America with Tavis Smiley. How many of you remember those big all-day programs, the State of Black America? And I was called upon to be on the stage with the likes of Minister Farrakhan, Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson, Cornel West, Michael Eric Dyson, the who's who of Black intelligentsia. And I talked about my concept of connecting the dots. And someone found this on YouTube because Tavis videotaped it, excerpted the soundtrack from the piece, and then put together a little drawing that illustrated this idea of connecting the dots.
Warriors, I think I wanted to ask you the question, can you imagine writing a novel that's not centered about race? And you said absolutely.
Yes.
Will you?
That's what he asked me. I think, see, I answered the question he didn't pose. You know, Tolstoy writes about race.
Yeah.
All the time. So does Zola, so does James Joyce. Now, if anybody can go up to an imaginary James Joyce and say, you write about race all the time. It's central in your novels. When are you going to write about what? Because you see, the person who asks that question doesn't understand that he or she is also raced. So to ask me when am I going to stop, or when, if I can, is to ask a question that, in a sense, is its own answer. Yes, I can write about white people. White people can write about black people. Anything can happen in art. There are no boundaries there. Having to do it or having to prove that I can do it is what was embarrassing.
Is where it gets real.
Brother says the honeymoon is soon over, but Samuel L. Jackson made it back home. I think the big question is, can Black diaspora meaningfully connect to the continent? That is the big question. And the biggest challenge always has been that those who interfered with our social fabric, the colonizers, created a problem of divide and rule. That has persisted through the centuries. If you look around me, I'm at the main rail station in Nairobi, Kenya. It's over a century years old. And this is the exact symbol of what you'd call divide and rule, because the rail station came into the country, got the Brits from Mombasa, from the coast, all the way to the interior of the country, to the next coast in Kisumu, all the way to Kampala in Uganda. That is how the colonizers divided Africa. So this is a still symbol of that division that happened. It continues until today. So I want us to share, look at what these brothers and sisters are talking about in terms of the pain of coming back home to Africa. What challenges are they facing? And I'll demonstrate to you that the biggest challenge that we have as Africans on the continent is that we are divided. The oppressor has always come back, divided us. So we need to look out for that. Let's listen to these brothers and sisters, react to it, and I can assure you there's so much to share about Africa and diaspora Africans. This is Afrocentric.
We romanticize the idea, right, of coming to the continent.
Right.
We get to the continent or to the particular country, and the honeymoon is sweet.
Right.
But after the honeymoon is where it gets real, right?
Right.
I'd like for you to speak to us about that after the honeymoon period. You know how we do, we keep it up.
All right.
As you say, we keep it a buck. Here's the part that needs to be understood.
Come on in, push that like button. Show me some love.
Right. We have a history of an experience living in America. And for most of us that are deciding to come, we're coming to Africa because we are wanting to be removed from that experience or reconnect to something that we know deep inside of us is a part of us to be found here on the continent. And we will be remiss if we being here and having these experiences, knowing that this is the situation and condition of our brothers and sisters back home, and not tell them the full story
And that's why it's romanticized, because people are afraid to tell their truths. We got to hear all the fluff. We got to see all the entertainment, all the sweet, good stuff. We fell for it. Everybody does. But when you have people that tells you their story and you get to hear their version, you have something to weigh your choices on.
That's right.
Now you know, okay, this could happen, and this is my situation too, and I really needed this, and I relate to that brother. That's because you got the truth. So don't get offended.
Right.
Period.
And you know
all right, Brother Will, talk to us, brother.
and you know what, you are touching point on a good subject, because as African Americans, we all look at Africa as the motherland, right? It's the motherland. That's where we came from. Well, a good portion of the country believe that. Some Americans, African Americans, believe that we from America, but that's another conversation. But in reference to how I feel, and then again to the viewers, this is my experience. I'm speaking from my experience and my thoughts. Everybody is different, but I'm only going to give you my perspective and my experience on being American and then moving to Africa. And you're right. I was the same way. I romanticized, like, one day, wow, I want to go to Africa and reconnect with my people, and yeah, that's where we come from. But then once you get there, you're seeing that you're not seen as African. You're seen as an American. You like seen as a Black American. You just American is happen to be Black in most situations. And I felt that way when I initially went to Ghana. And I was like, oh, okay. They'll never view me as brother, because a good percentage of Africans, they're not taught our history. They're not taught about the slave trade to an extent. So they don't understand why we romanticize coming to Africa.
How y'all doing? Push that like button.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Last week, President Biden made history by issuing more pardons and commutations than any president before him. Among the thousands of pardons was one that came after more than a century. Black nationalist leader Marcus Garvey received a posthumous pardon for a mail fraud conviction in 1923. Advocates and congressional leaders had pushed for Garvey's pardon for years, with supporters arguing Garvey's conviction was politically motivated and an effort to silence the Pan-African leader who spoke of racial pride. This is audio of Marcus Garvey speaking in Harlem in 1924.
The Negro is a man. We represent the new Negro. His back is not yet against the wall. We do not want his back against the wall, because that would be a peculiar and desperate position. We do not want him there. It is because of this that we are asking for fair compromise. Where the Belgians have control of the Belgian Congo, which they cannot use, they have not the resources to develop, nor the intelligence. The French have more territory than they can develop. There are certain parts of Africa in which they cannot live at all. So it is for you to come together and give us a United States of Africa. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We are not going to be a race without a country. God never intended it, and we're not going to abuse God's confidence in us as men. We are men, human beings, capable of the same acts as any other race, possessing under fair circumstances the same intelligence as any other race. Now Africa's been sleeping, not dead, only sleeping. Today Africa's walking around not only on our feet, but on our brains. You can enslave as was done for 300 years the bodies of men. You can shackle the hands of men. You can shackle the feet of men. You can imprison the bodies of men, but you cannot shackle or imprison the minds of men.
Born in Jamaica in 1887, Marcus Garvey established the Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League in 1914. In 1917, he established the headquarters of the UNIA in Harlem. Black self-reliance was central to his ideology, and he established the Black Star Line, a shipping company which raised over $600,000 before collapsing in 1922. In 1923, U.S. authorities prosecuted and convicted Garvey for mail fraud in connection with the Black Star Line. He served a 2-year sentence, was then deported to Jamaica. He died in 1940 in England. For more, we go to human rights lawyer and Howard University's School of Law professor Justin Hansford. He's executive director of the Thurgood Marshall Civil Rights Center, the first American to be nominated and elected to the United Nations Permanent Forum for People of African Descent. Professor Hansford is the author of Jailing a Rainbow, the unjust trial and conviction of Marcus Garvey. So, Professor Hansford, you and Howard University were instrumental in achieving this pardon in the last hours of President Biden's tenure. Tell us the story of Marcus Garvey.
Yes, good morning, Amy. This is a pleasure this morning to talk about one of my personal heroes. You know, Marcus Garvey, as you described, was one of the first anti-colonial global black leaders. He created an organization of over 6 million people. And what he did was do more than simply provide inspiration, but he also provided a blueprint for Pan-Africanism, the creation of the red, black, and green flag. You know, his words, for example, we will emancipate later on in his career at the head of the FBI, he would go on to create COINTEL and to harass Dr. Martin Luther King, the Black Panther Party. But he really got his start harassing Marcus Garvey, who we feared would be a quote-unquote Black Moses. And so he led an investigation where he targeted Garvey. The first Black FBI agent named James Wormley Jones was assigned to infiltrate Garvey's Black Star Line. And ultimately, they brought a lawsuit arguing that the entire Black Star Line enterprise and project was just a fraud, and to use the mails to advertise for the Black Star Line was using the mails to defraud. And so they brought that case before an all-white jury in 1923 and convicted Garvey and ultimately imprisoned and deported him, and he would never return to the United States after that conviction. And I just wanted to say what made that conviction so terrible, it wasn't simply a random charge. What they did is they tried to undercut his life's work and say the very thing that inspired millions of people around the world was actually a fake and a fraud. And so it spoke to the heart of his activism and his vision and really tried to delegitimize his life's work. That's what made it so important to overturn that.
In July of 1917, the city of East St. Louis, Illinois, became the scene of one of the bloodiest race riots of the 20th century. Mobs of whites set fire to the homes of black residents, beat, shot, and lynched men, women, and children. Marcus Garvey spoke out against the violence in an emergency meeting in Harlem, marking the expansion of his movement to include American race relations. This is a clip from Stanley Nelson's PBS American Experience documentary, Marcus Garvey, Look for Me in the Whirlwind. It's an actor reading Garvey's speech.
The whole thing, my friends, is a bloody farce. That the police and soldiers did nothing to stem the murder thirst of the mob is conclusive proof of conspiracy on the part of the civil authorities to condone the acts of the white mob against Negroes. White people are taking advantage of black men today because black men all over the world are disunited.
So that was a reading of Marcus Garvey. Explain the context, Professor Hansford.
Yes, well, what we're talking about in 1923 is shortly after the Red Summer of 1919. We're seeing lynchings happening all across the country, and also they're being framed as race riots. And in this context, there's a debate taking place as to how we should respond in our community. And Garvey and W.B. Du Bois and others were hotly debating this topic. Garvey's position was that we must stand up aggressively and be willing to assert ourselves and be willing to have a global vision, bring people together from around the world to fight back. It's very similar to, I have to say, an inspiration to what we're facing right now. We're in the very dark moment politically, and we have to think amongst ourselves, how are we going to respond? Are we going to respond with confidence? Are we going to respond with a sense of self-empowerment? Or do we feel like we have to cower and take a less aggressive approach? It was very confrontational. It was very courageous in terms of what Marcus Garvey advocated for. And, you know, that's one of the reasons that he was seen as a threat. And that's why he was targeted by the United States government because of his approach and his way of inspiring people to respond and stand up.
This dude do not know what he's talking about.
Assert their dignity and come up with effective strategies that often demanded that we took an economic-based approach to self-empowerment.
The posthumous pardon for Marcus Garvey is and the same pardon as Ravi Ragbir, the immigrant rights leader. And I encourage people to go to democracynow.org to see our interview with Ravi after he too was pardoned. That came out on Sunday. But finally, Professor Hansford, I wanted to ask you about President Trump expanding his crackdown on DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, revoking a 60-year-old executive order signed by then-President LBJ, Lyndon Baines Johnson, banning hiring discrimination, and talk about overall has happened with this. DEI workers across the federal have been suspended as of Wednesday. I mean, it is astounding going on, and in the next days, anyone in the federal government is encouraged to rat out others who might be working on disguised DEI issues. Have we seen anything like this before, and what's the significance of it?
Well, you'd have to go back to these periods in history we're talking about to see similar efforts.